What is up, everybody? How you guys doing out there in YouTube land? First and foremost, thank you for everybody that reached out to me. I know we had a show scheduled on Friday, but because of a last-minute family circumstances, I had to cancel and postpone it. I will have that show come out to you sooner. I haven't decided exactly when it's going to come out, but it's going to happen sometime this week. So it is going to happen. We're going to be talking a little bit about the monthly numbers because numbers are good and there's some really good stuff there. But for this week, we're going to focus on some really cool things. And I brought in a special guest because Shane could not make it here today. So see you, Shane, and have fun wherever you're at. I know he's doing some personal stuff. But let's bring our guest host for today, and let's bring him in.
Welcome to the party, pal.
And it's Paul from Sector 2815. How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing. It's crazy. It's been a crazy couple of days for me in general, but I'm doing well. We got a stacked show lined up. I gave you the rundown of what we're doing. I see you got some really cool stuff in the background. Notice I have a lot of green going on here, right? We'll talk a little bit more about the green a little later, but let's say what's up to the people in the chat before we even get started with the show. And we got Joe, the Avenger is Joe, 14th month, and I still have no idea how Shane keeps using my time machine when I have the keys. LOL. Well, we went a little too far back because Shane's not here. so I guess he went a little too far back with that one. All right. Also, we got Tone from Comic Verse. What's going on, my man? Check this out. He's just hanging out while playing Red Dead Redemption. That game's still going on now? People still play that? I guess so, right? And we got from the Spiral Dimension, DVH. What's going on, DVH? Christina Payne is also in the house, throwing in those much love. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe. You know the business, how it works here. Tremendous. Paul is here.
So nice.
Yeah.
Thanks,
That's right. So Shane couldn't make it today, so Paul is here. So we're gonna do some really fun stuff. For this show, we're gonna pass on Creator Spotlight, but I will be doing a Creator Spotlight video this week. It's gonna come out. It should come out on Thursday, as it normally would come out on the replay. So there will be a pre-recorded Creator Spotlight, only because I didn't want to waste too much of the time. I know I was telling Paul that sometimes we go 3 hours on these shows, and we're trying not to. We really are trying not to. So we're gonna try to go as quickly as possible with it. Also, I gotta say what's up to my man Black Spiders. I just watched Justice League Ruby Part 2. Not sure I'll bother with Part 1. I keep telling him to play it with the time showing you right now. You see, this is what you did, man. It's all your fault. It is all his fault.
There you go.
There you go, Joe. Anyway, you ready to talk about some trending comic books?
I am ready. Let's go.
All right. Let's see how good Paul is with trending. So let's do our trending list. This week, the first week of May 2025, we have some really cool books on the trendy list. Some expected, some not expected. We got 4 books that made the list here. We got one that's a repeat from last week, but we got 3 new books on this list. Stillwater, Incredible Hulk, Captain Planet, and Wolverine. Immediate thoughts when you see this?
Well, my first thought is someone, I'm assuming Sebastian Stan, needs to go into every single comic shop and paste the word New Avengers over Thunderbolts.
Well, they really gave that up quick, didn't they?
Yeah, they really did.
Did you see the posters, what they're doing to the posters now?
Yeah, exactly.
They're ripping them up and it's saying New Avengers.
And Sebastian Stan was filmed in LA putting up new posters over the Thunderbolts one that now says New Avengers.
Really?
Yeah. So Marvel is going all out. Captain
Oh man.
Planet, not surprised, not sure how much this is a Mark Spears buy, as opposed to people really want Captain Planets. But you know what? Everyone loves the 80s stuff. They love
Mhm.
Thundercats, they love Space Ghost, they love, all those things.
Yeah.
Stillwater, Chip Zdarsky, can't go wrong with Chip Zdarsky,
Mhm.
right? And Wolverine, that's a Darren Warren Johnson
Mhm.
cover. It was actually an open to buy cover, so but it's
Yeah.
also, I believe, the second printing. They're doing a version of that as part of the second printing as well. So
Mhm. Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about all of these books here.
mhm.
Let's first go with an honorable mentions. So our honorable mentions are books that didn't quite crack the top 10, but they deserve to be mentioned. Starting with Inhumans #5. This is the first cameo appearance of Yelena,
Mhm.
the Black Widow, who is part of the Thunderbolts team, now the new Avengers. Then you have The Last of Us, American Dreams. This is the first issue of the Last of Us comic book. Obviously, Last of Us is pretty popular right now. I think
Mhm.
we're on the fourth episode right now of
Yes,
it,
last night was the fourth episode. Yep.
right? And then lastly,
No,
you got another.
last night was the third episode. No, I'm right.
Was it the third?
Last episode was the fourth, because I
Fourth,
haven't watched it
third.
yet. I've seen
Yeah.
three, but last night was the
I
fourth, and I
haven't
haven't
even
watched it
seen
yet.
any of them. I gotta watch it. It's like we're
Yeah.
too busy trying to watch all these episodes of Andor. They keep dropping 3 at a time, so it's
Three at a
killing me.
time. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like I can't do that, man. I can't watch a show like that anymore, right? So The Last of Us, and then finally a new one to it, Miami Vice remix. Obviously, it has to do with Miami Vice, and there's now word that they're planning to do a new Miami Vice movie. This is
Oh,
the Comic Books Associate. It's the first Miami Vice comic book, but
okay.
it's really cool, done by Joe Casey with Jim Mafu, whose artwork is always cool to look at,
Mhm.
very distinct, very catchy, and stuff like that. Your immediate thoughts on these 3 books?
Not surprised by The Last of Us. I think you could slap that title on almost anything, and it would probably be pretty popular.
Mhm.
In Humans, I did not know that was the first appearance of Yelena,
Mhm.
but that kind of explains that. So that's kind of fair. Miami Vice, I'm surprised because it wasn't. I mean, I'm bad with time, but we just
Mhm.
had the Colin Farrell, and who was the other person that was in it with Colin Farrell?
Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx.
Yeah.
Wasn't that all that long ago? And I mean, it was probably a good
It's
10. It was
actually
probably a good
longer than
10 years,
you think.
maybe. But um,
Mhm.
it's, I guess, like that. I mean, everything old is new again. So I'm not surprised that they're going back to the well. And
So you're ready for this one?
yeah.
You think it's not that old?
Hmm.
It came out in 2006.
Oh wow. Okay, so
It is it
that's
is pretty old
19
now.
years. Yeah, almost 20 years. So
Yeah, it's amazing how time flies in this way because it does feel like a movie that we just saw, but I guess they're trying to remake it. They got some good people attached to it. Um, who's to say it's not going to do well? But
mm,
the last movie was fine. It wasn't like a smash hit or anything
right.
like that.
It didn't light the
But
world on fire.
yeah, it didn't continue and stuff like that. And I think at the time you had like Bad Boys and stuff like that,
Right.
which is kind of like took most of the thunder of Miami Vice. And let's be honest, Miami Vice is really about it was all about the 80s.
Oh yeah, it was groundbreaking for its time as a television show,
Mhm.
combining the music and everything. But
Yeah.
as a movie, nah, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, and it was set in modern time when they did it. So
Right.
it's like I don't care about that. I want to
Mhm.
see an 80s version of Miami Vice. Like go there. We'll see what happens, but here are your honorable mentions. Let's go ahead and start the list off with number 10. And number 10 is Predator #1. This book came out in 1989 for Dark Horse Comics. The last recorded sale of this book is $25 at a very fine. Fair market value of this book is $77 near mint and $178 9.8. This came in at number 3 for CBSI. And now I'm putting in the 30-day sales. It's always been the 30-day sales, but now you actually can see it. There's been 40 sales within the last 30 days of this comic book as per cover price. And the hype level is at a medium. All right. Predator. Have you gotten to see the new Predator
I'm gonna
Badland?
say I'm sure that that's probably why that's here, because the Badland trailer dropped in this past week. So it looks good. It looks by the guy, and it's done by the same guy who did Predator Prey, the Hulu
Mhm.
movie when we were all in COVID. Um,
Yeah.
that was a great movie. So I'm expecting big things out of Predator Badlands.
Yeah, same here. So when I went to the theaters to see Thunderbolts, asterisk. Or should we call it New Avengers now?
I thought it's
Minus-
gonna be Thunderbolts for me. So
All right. So when we went to see it, that they did have the Predator trailer, and I was like, "This got to be the Predator trailer," because I didn't see it prior to that. And people have been talking about it's a younger Predator. He's kind of the protagonist of the story, which is a different dynamic to it. But there's also like almost rumors that they're working on getting a crossover again for Alien and Predators to do it the right way. However, this book is one of those books that keeps coming back and forth, because Predator is one of those IP that you could just keep coming back to it. A Predator movie, all you have to do is you just have some Predator hunting something, and you got yourself a Predator movie.
Yeah. And if there's any company that knows how to totally milk their IPs, it's Disney. Because they
isn't it crazy that Disney's a Predator for us?
Yeah.
He's a Disney prince
under 20th Century Studios, but
all right, so there you go. That's number 10. Number 9, Ultimate Spider-Man number 16 is the Michael Walsh variant. This book came out this week for Marvel Comics. The last recorded sale of this book is $25 raw. Fair market value of this book is already at $27, and it's number 2 in cover price. As far as the 30-day sales, there's 52 recorded sales. Hype level of this book is at a medium. I knew last week this book was going to be hot. I didn't know it was going to make a top 10 list. Even though I had some kind of prediction, I would have told Shane, I'm predicting this book will be on this list. Do you know why it's on the list?
I do not. I only, when the Ultimate Universe came back, I got the first 6 issues of Ultimate Spider-Man, the first story arc, and then I kind of dropped it. And then I picked up Ultimates when it first came out, and Ultimate Black Panther. But those are really kind of only the 3 that I followed at all. Although I am kind of interested in Ultimate Incursion,
Yes.
which is coming up. So I don't know if this is because Jonathan Hickman is writing both. So I don't know if this has something to do with that. Or...
There could be correlation to it. The real reason why this one's in the list, and it's specifically this variant, is because this is the first cover appearance of this version of Spider-Man, which is not Peter Parker. This is Richard Parker, his son, who's wearing the costume that he has. And a lot of people say, oh, well, yeah, but in issue 1, they did the black costume. It's not the same costume. This costume is more in tune with the Spider-Man 3 movie costume, where it's the black costume, but with the webbing attached to it. That's why this book is on this list, because it's a first cover appearance of a new version of a Spider-Man. So what does that mean for the future? Are we saying that Richard Parker could eventually become the new Ultimate Spider-Man and Peter Parker goes bye-bye in the Incursion story? I don't know. I'm just saying there's a possibility. But that's why it's here. I immediately knew it. It was an open order book too. So kind of like the book that we're going to talk about later with Wolverine, this was also open order. And I think some people didn't realize that this book should have been picked up. And they didn't pick it up. So now people want to pick it up. Because $25 is telling me you didn't pick it up when it came out.
Right.
All right, let's take a look at number 8. And that's Star Wars Legacy number 2. This came out for Dark Horse Comics in 2006. The last recorded sale of this book was $145 at a 9.8. Fair market value of this book is $33 near mint and $137 at a 9.8. This is number 2 in Key Collector. And the sales volume, well, the 30-day sales for this one is at 59 sales. Hype level is medium. This is a holdover from last week. Last week, this book was hot because we had word that Talon, Darth Talon, is going to be appearing in the next Darth Maul series that are going to be made for Disney Plus. Do you know anything else about Star Wars?
Well,
in general and all that.
That's her on the left, right on the cover, right?
No, actually, that's not her on the left. So she's on the cover Star Wars Legacy issue 0.
Okay.
So she's like, what if the way I envision it? What if Ahsoka and Darth Maul had a daughter?
Okay.
She's from the same. I'm a casual Star Wars guy, but she looks like Ahsoka, but with the colors of Darth Maul.
Right.
That's how I envision her.
Okay.
So the announcement was made last week. This is pretty much a holdover from last week that's still gaining traction and people are still buying. Because 59 sales, that's the monthly numbers.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, with Star Wars stuff, I would wait to buy any of these things until cameras start rolling because they announce so many things that never happen.
I agree to it. I'm also, when it comes to Star Wars first appearances, they're such a roller coaster, man.
Right.
They're up and down, up and down, up and down. Like whenever there's an announcement of a TV show of a character or anything like that, you're gonna immediately be like, oh, gotta pick it up, and that the price goes up, but then it drops back down. So this book at $33, even I think it's a little high. You know, for a raw copy. $20, maybe, but that's me. But I'm not a Star Wars guy, so it's all dependent on the Star Wars people and what they think. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Let's take a look at number 7, and that is Avengers 43. This book came out in 1967 for Marvel Comics. The last recorded sale of this book was $125 at a 6.0. Fair market value is $62 at a very good, and $545 for 9.0. And those are the average sales, by the way. The trendy list, it's number 7 in Key Collector, number 7 in CBSI. It's not on cover price, and the 30-day sales for a book that's from 1967 is 36 sales, which is actually really good for a book that's old. Hype level is a medium. First appearance of Red Guardian. I know you know this one.
I think I'm pretty sure I saw him on my cereal box this morning.
Talk to me. Did you get a chance to see the Thunderbolts?
I did.
And what is your thoughts on the movie?
I've told everybody that I gave it a 7 out of 10.
Oh, okay.
Which I think was pretty good. I also think that in some ways people's maybe too excited about it because you're comparing it to the last year and a half that Marvel has put out. But I really liked it. It kept to its story. It didn't try to go lots of places, and it was true to the characters. Meaning, you know what, you didn't. If another writer may have used Taskmaster at the in some way to save the rest of the team at the very end, and that's how she dies. She basically dies saying, I don't need any of you people, exactly. Yeah. And it's real quick and it's at the beginning and it's like, you know what, that's exactly the way in a movie like this, where there really is no connection between everybody, as much as Red Guardian wants to convince everybody that there is a connection with everybody, it stayed really true to the characters for the entire movie. So I enjoyed it.
It was a really good movie. I was really impressed of how they did the Sentry. Especially that when he turns into the Void, because everybody knows about the Void and Sentry. Right. That's not really as much of a spoiler. But the third act of the movie was not your traditional third act. And I will say it's an unexpected third act approach to it. With that said, I think the characters, like you said, the characters were great. I personally think David Harbour was awesome as the Red Guardian. Like he was the comedic character, the whole thing. And it was just so funny seeing him, as he said, the Wheaties, and all that fun stuff. And, but when he needed to be a dad to Yelena, he was a dad. And that's the part that really was that was the heart of the movie. Their dynamic together. I'm really impressed with the movie. It is, I will say, it's one of the best movies after Endgame. So it is one of the best movies after Endgame. But what it's not an Endgame level movie. That's left for Avengers, which technically this is the new Avengers. So, so there you have it. That's number 7, Avengers 43. Let's take a look at number 6. This is the one that just came out of nowhere for me, and it's called V Friends number 2. It is a sealed collector's comic pack that was limited to 3,000 copies. This came out this week for V Friends LLC. The last recorded sale of this was $58 near mint. Fair market value $61. It was number 1 on cover price. And the 30-day sales is $61. I have to put a hype level of a medium because it's number 1. I don't expect you to know anything about this because I know nothing about this.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. I mean, I wonder why it's in a pack. Is it Is it just trying to be like kind of like your opening cards for kids or whatever? Or
Well, yeah, and that's the thing that really I did a quick search on what V Friends is,
Mhm,
and this is coming from Tops
mhm,
the trading cards,
okay,
and it's just a series of digital collectibles with multiple characters. I mean, there's a lot of V characters. So V Friends, and again, this is from someone that knows nothing.
mhm,
I guess you could say it's kind of Pokemon-ish
okay,
in that way, but it's mostly animal characters. You know,
mhm,
there's a dog, there's a purple elephant, there's a bear with sunglasses, there's a dinosaur, and they're all V Friends. So this is a popular kids item.
okay,
Now, where this originates from, it's gonna take some time for me to even know it. I don't expect this to be on the list next week, and if it is, I'll be shocked. But it made the list. It's a pack with comic books in it, just
Are
like
there
the Whatnot comics.
and are there different covers in each pack or something? Is that, I mean, because if they're trying to make it be like Pokemon, then you got to collect them all.
Well,
So
yeah,
that's
and that's
probably what
that
they
could be
want.
part of it. That could be part of the sales. That like those 61 sales could be like 10 people.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I just don't know. I don't have enough information to know more about it. I don't even know where these things sold, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
I'd never
It,
heard of
it
it
is
before.
complete anomaly. You know, nothing. I know nothing of V Friends, but I guess I'm not the audience for V Friends.
Mm.
But there you have it. At number 6, V Friends. Let's go to our next one here, and that is, let's see here, my clicker is not clicking. Captain Planet number 1. This is the Mark Spears Earth Day Gold Virgin foil cover. This was limited to only, ready for this,
Mm.
422 copies.
Yep.
Therefore, Earth Day, that's when it came out. 2025 for Dynamite Entertainment. The last recorded sale was $57. Fair market value was $35 near mint. It only came in number 6 for cover price. 30-day sales. Would you believe 113 comics already sold
Mhm,
within this time period? And the hype level is a medium. This sold for 2 factors. One, you said it best. Nostalgic, Captain
mhm.
Planet, and Mark Spears.
Right.
That's it
Yeah. Yep. And I think the actual first issue comes out
this week.
this week, right?
Yeah, this week. So this came out prior to this week, but
Right.
they did an
Mhm.
eBay live,
Yep.
and that's where this popped out of nowhere.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't feel it. That's my personal period. I've never been a Captain Planet guy.
I
So
pre-ordered it because I absolutely love Mark Spears.
mm,
So I ordered just one copy of the main cover. And I love foil, so I may at some point try to go back and get this to see if the prices come down or whatever. But
yeah.
um, yeah, and you know what? I didn't really watch Captain Planet when it was on,
hmm
um, but I was watching like Battle of the Planets and things like that as opposed to Captain Planet.
Yeah. Yeah, you were a little too old when
Mhm.
Captain Planet came out because it
Right,
came out in the 90s.
right.
It came out like early 90s and things
Mhm,
like that. So it's past the He-Mans, the Thundercats, it's all that. And it was about it was about environmentalism. That's
mhm.
all it was,
Yep,
really.
yep.
So Captain Planet number 1, the Mark Spears Earth Day Gold Virgin variant at number 5. At number 4, the Century number 1. This book came out in 2000 from Marvel Comics. $84 is the near mint value last recorded sale. Fair market value of this book is $99 near mint, $287 at a 9.4. This is number 3 in Key Collector, number 4 in CBSI. 30-day sales, 54 copies. Because of the Thunderbolts movie, this is at a hype level, at a high. We talked about this book plenty of times being shamed during this list. It keeps coming back and forth. It'll be part of the monthly list. I know that much. But now that we talked a little bit about Thunderbolts, talk to me a little bit about your impressions of how they did the Century.
Um, First of all, I gotta say, Lewis Pullman looked exactly like his father.
He really
Even Dead
does.
Ringer. Um, but I actually really liked it. I think the suit that he was in was comic accurate. It was great. I tell you, with this issue, I wasn't a big Marvel guy growing up. I didn't buy a lot of Marvel comics. This was one of the first Marvel comics that I can remember buying strictly off of the cover. I loved this cover.
It's
It
a
was
great
great.
Jay Lee cover. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely.
Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee, it was, they just knocked it out of the park with this. And I get that he was supposed to kind of be the Marvel answer to Superman. But yeah, I loved him in the movie. He's in kind of a weird place at the end of the movie, so we'll see where they go with that. But um,
Mhm.
yeah,
So I don't know how much you recall the whole marketing production when it came to the Century comic. I don't know if you remember, before the comic book debut, they did this whole marketing ploy that the Century is actually a Silver Age character that predates the Avengers.
right.
And Stan Lee was part of the hoax. It was all hoax, by the way.
Yep.
It was part of a hoax, saying that, I don't remember this character. And that was kind of the intrigue of the character himself, where he was a 50s superhero. But in reality, it was just a figment of his imagination, because we end up finding out that the Sentry has a multiple personality disorder, and thus we have the Void. And I never looked at this cover the same way. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's perfect now, because you have the image of the Sentry, who's supposed to be the power of a million suns there, but you also have the blackness of the Void, which is part of who he is as well. And I think what they did in the movie was really cool, how they did the Void in the movie. I like the fact that he was just like a silhouette, and you could see his eyes and maybe just a little bit of his body, like a light, like just a glimmer of light. But they did a fantastic job with the Sentry, I think.
Yeah,
Costume was on point too. All right, let's take a look at number 3. And that is, speaking of the Thunderbolts, Incredible Hulk 449. This book came out in 1996 from Marvel Comics. $70 near mint was the last recorded sale. Fair market value of this book is $53 near mint, $290 and 9.8. And across all three, it came in 5th place. Came in 3rd place in ours because of the 30-day sale and because of the hype level. Now that we've talked a little bit more about the Thunderbolts, the only thing I have that I do have a problem with the movie, and this is how it doesn't get a perfect score for me, is that it was called the Thunderbolts only by name, and it had nothing to do with this version of Thunderbolts, which is the original Thunderbolts.
Right, had to do with Thaddeus Thunderbolt, right, in the comic, right, in this comic.
Not even it. So Thaddeus was part of it, but it wasn't. It was more about what their origins were and things like that.
Okay.
So with the Thunderbolts, it's like their origins in the comic book completely different than what the movie is. And even with the Guardians of the Galaxy, which they took liberties, they still had elements of the second version of the Guardians of the Galaxy, not the OG.
Right.
This Thunderbolts had nothing to do with the OG Thunderbolts.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Which I would have, I would have liked to have seen Baron Zemo somewhere in this movie. Somewhere. You know what I mean? Because that's the Thunderbolts. He's really the whole thing of the Thunderbolts. But yeah, that's how I feel about that. This is a great comic book. I love this cover by Mike Deodat, early Mike Deodat as well. So really good stuff. All right. That's number 3. Let's take a look at number 2. And that is Stillwater number 1. This book came out in 2020 for Image Comics. $96 was the last recorded sale at a 9.8. Fair market value of this book is $12 near mint, $90 and 9.8. It is number 1 in Key Collector, number 2 in CBSI, number 3 in cover price. The 30-day sales is 80 sales. The hype level is at a high. This book was option, and that is why this book is on this list. It's the whole option buzz.
I was going to say that's the only reason I can, as much as I love Chip Zdarsky, that's the only reason I can think why it would be so high on all these lists is somebody optioned it somewhere, which never means
it got optioned.
Never means it's going to go anywhere, but it got optioned.
So tell me a little bit about this story, because you like Chip Zdarsky. Did you ever read Stillwater?
Yeah, but it was like 2020. Is that what you said? 2019.
Yeah, 2020. It was 5 years now.
Yeah, I'd have to. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't remember a lot of it. I'm really bad when it comes to once it goes like 4 or 5 years. I tend to have to go back and reread it.
Well, one thing I do know is that it is a story about it's about a city or a town, and no one in the town can die.
Mhm.
That's pretty much the premise. They live forever. That's the idea. I never read Stillwater. I'm thinking about reading it, reading it over at Global
Mhm.
Comics. They have that comic there. So if you guys ever want to read it, you could go to Global Comics. There's a QR code that you could see. I'll put it up a little later. It's there. You could read it there. It's part of a series. So Stillwater is not just one series.
Mhm.
This is the main one. This is the first one that came out. There's some others that followed afterwards, but I don't know much about Stillwater other than what I've heard.
Mhm.
And it's been optioned. So take that with a grain of salt, like everything that's been optioned. If it's been optioned, it's going to go through immediate sky. It's going to go up, and then you're not going to hear anything. It's going to drop back down. For $12, this book, I'll wait, and I'll get it for even cheaper, I bet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. All right, let's take a look at our number one book of the week. You know what it's got to be. It's got to be Wolverine, the Daniel Warren Johnson variant. This book came out in 2025 from Marvel Comics. The last recorded sale now is $75 near mint. The fair market value of this book is $62 near mint and $125 for 9.8, even though they don't exist yet.
Right.
They don't exist.
Mhm.
They're being pre-sold. It's number one on CBSI. It's number 4 on cover price. What really brought this to the number one spot is the 30-day sales. 284 copies sold in the 30-day period. Hype level of this book is at a high. People are eating this cover up.
Yeah, and it's I mean it is a legacy issue. It's 800 for the legacy.
400.
400, sorry, 400.
It's 400.
In the legacy, there is I can't remember, but there is a character that's introduced in it. I haven't read it yet. I do have this. I bought this particular issue because I bought the Warren Johnson cover. So it would, like you said before, it was open to order, so anyone could have gotten this. And they're using it on the second print. So Daryl Warren Johnson is one of these people right now that seems like he can do no wrong. Everything he touches turns to gold.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Mark Spears in a way, where in this one, you got a cover. People weren't specking on this cover. They didn't know it was Daniel Warren Johnson until it was out. So as far as the FOCs of this, I'm willing to bet the FOCs were relatively low for it, and therefore it didn't have a lot of orders. I think it's a cover C. It's not even a cover B. I think it's a cover C of an open order book.
Yep.
It's 400, so there's a little bit more than normal because it's still Legacy 400, but it's not as much more.
Right.
And there is a side story by Daniel Warren Johnson. As you said, they're doing the second printing. They're also doing the 1 in 25 version, which is just eliminates the little bit of lettering that you get there. But it is the number one book of the week for the second week in a row.
Wow.
So yeah, this book is hot. So guys, tell me your thoughts. What do you think about this ranking system? Which books do you have? Make sure you share in the comments which books you have, which ones you want to get, which ones you paid secondary market for, and stay tuned for next week's ranking. There you have it, and that completes our first one. See, we killed it. First one down. All right, now let's go back to the chat for a second because I saw Kenneth Bird came in. Say what's up. How you doing, Kenneth Bird? Bet they're going to run that Wolverine comic in different colors.
Exactly. It'll be the new Amazing Spider-Man Patrick Gleason story.
I got a few of those. I took them down, but I got a few of those. But I think it had just white letter. The one they did was white letter, and now that second print is white letter, and the red letter is the other one. Yeah, I never knew that Miami Viva. I'm messing with Black Spider. Yeah. All right. Yep, it's on the wish list. I think I had that Predator number 1. I might have sold it or something like that. In the MC, Red Guardian is dad to Natasha and Yelena. In the comics, he's Nate's husband. Oh, interesting. See, Joe's my historian. Whenever I say something wrong, he's gonna correct me. So he's that guy with the the glasses. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Correction. That's Joe. All right. Planet with a beer is just plain weird. And we got Phil's Treehouse. Yay, Century. Jenkins roll his character out so well. Yeah, it really does. Like I said, the marketing of the Century was really clever. Some people were pissed off at it, but I was happy. You know what I mean? It was cool. All right. So now, Paul,
Yeah.
what you been up to, man? Talk to me about some of the things you got going on.
Well, this morning, Mark from Legion of Comics and we dropped another episode of DC Comics Deep Dive. We were basically following the Absolute universe, but in the absence of an Absolute issue, we're also now following the first all-in crossover between Justice League Unlimited and World's Finest, which is We Are Yesterday. So we're taking a look at the World's Finest 2025 annual number 2025 annual, which is part 3 of the crossover. And we're taking a look at the DC Comics free comic book day, because it was a flip cover, and although it had Unlimited Superman or Superman Unlimited on one side, it had an Absolute story on the back side. And so it is very important and ties into the entire universe and where that may be going and what's coming up for it, probably in the fall. And then I do Guess That Key every other Wednesday night. Tomorrow, this Wednesday night, we have Burke Family 54 Comics and TM Nerdy, as well as Mark from Legion of Comics. And then I'm on that week's end every Sunday night at 8:30 on his channel.
Mark didn't fall. Mark hasn't fallen asleep anymore, right?
I hope not. No.
He's like, I remember he was like, I didn't show up because I fell asleep.
Yeah.
There goes Joe right here. Yep, I'm adjusting my glasses while giving you the burn. Oh man, I love you, Joe. Okay, so we decided we're gonna, like I said, I decided that we're gonna skip 30, 60, 90 for the live stream. There will be a pre-recorded version of it, but I'm not skipping Creator Spotlight because I decided who else am I going to talk about Creator Spotlight but the guy who loves Green Lantern more than anybody else, Sector 2815. So we're going to be doing a Creator Spotlight today on the top 20 with some extras, of course. We're going to do a top 20 Green Lantern comics. You'll be surprised how inexpensive some of these really are.
Yeah.
So let's do the Creator Spotlight right now. Okay, it's Creator Spotlight with Paul from Sector 2815, and we are doing Go Collect's top 20 Green Lantern comics. Paul, when I contacted you and I was asking you what kind of spotlight you want to do, you're like, do what you want to do. And I was like, your pick. And I'm like, dude, I do it every week on my pick. And then it hit me. It's like, oh yeah, I got the Green Lantern guy. So we decided to go with Green Lantern. I send you the list. I send you a list of 30 comic books, and you pretty much agreed with me on pretty much everything. So we do have a good chunk of comics. We're going to go over 20 comics, but we're going to go over a little bit more than just 20 because we do have some honorable mentions as well. But before,
by the way, this is a Mark Spears cover.
Yes, it is. It is. And I was looking at it, I was like, this is perfect for it. So, but before we even get to any of these books, why do you love Green Lantern?
There was just something when I was growing up. It was, you had Superman obviously had superpowers. Batman had $1 billion. Green Lantern was someone. Yeah, he had the ring, but it was just all his will. It was all him as to how powerful he was. And I just love the idea of, he had a cool costume, I thought, with the green and everything. And he was in outer space, and he had all these different people, and he had these little blue aliens that he reported to. It was just everything. The whole mythos just kind of spoke to me, and it was great. I just absolutely to this day, I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I agree. I love Green Lantern myself. I like how, especially when it comes to the core, right? When it comes to the Green Lantern core, I like these different types of characters, how artists and writers become creative with the new versions of Green Lantern and things like that. And now we're at the point that we have so many that sometimes you like too many, to the point that even in the 90s, we're like, nah, we got to cut this out. It didn't last, but we'll talk
Right.
about that later. So let's go ahead and talk first about the honorable mentions.
Mhm.
We have 4 here, even though we do have a couple of more that you're going to see a little later. Talk to me a little bit about these honorable mentions because we talked a little bit about all of them.
Yep.
What can you tell me a little bit about them?
So the first one, the one with Jon Stewart on the cover, it's although that he's prominent there, that is mostly known for a pre-Watchmen Alan Moore, Dave Gibbons story where they created Mogo, who is a
Hmm.
planet, Green Lantern, an entire planet. So that's kind of what that one is known for.
Yeah.
Um, Final Crisis, Rage of the Red Lanterns, Atrocitus. One of the things that Jeff Johns did when he came in was he actually, I said this before, one of the beauties of Jeff Johns is he can take something and look at it and come up with something that in the end everyone goes, how did nobody think of this? It seems so obvious, you know?
Yeah, it really
And it's like,
does.
and here it was like, hey, you know what? You've got the green, and if green is will, well, green's not the only color in the world. Okay, there's all these other colors, and what do all these other colors mean? And so he created the color spectrum and the color core. And again, it's kind of like, how did nobody else think of this? It just seems like it's like right in front of everyone. The Green Lantern here, you have Larfreeze. He's the only Orange Lantern, but he can create other Orange Lanterns,
Mhm.
and it's all about lust and everything, and just creating things. And Cosmic Odyssey was a big in the John Stewart world because in the Cosmic Odyssey, through his error, the planet Xan, an entire planet is destroyed, and to this day, it's still impacting him. It still impacts him how he thinks and how he feels and what he does, and it's something that has come up over and over and over again. The guilt that he feels with that. So it was very important to John Stewart.
Yeah, and with Cosmic Odyssey as well, being that there is a destruction of a planet with John Stewart, that affects that also seems to be a common theme with Green Lanterns because
Hmm.
Hal Jordan has something very similar happen to him in
Hmm.
one of the stories that we're going to talk about. Um, yeah, when it comes to the two in the middle, we got the Red Lanterns, we got the one and only Agent Orange, which is Larfilis, that's his name, which is Arvice, that's what it is.
Yeah,
That's like just say greed, man.
avarice.
Avarice, right? Just say greed, man, because that's what it was. But I thought it was so funny because he's the only real one. And that's the
Right.
part that makes it so interesting. Obviously, you get the yellow lanterns, which was the first one, which was part of Sinestro. The pink lanterns, the blue lanterns, the white lantern, you name it. There's a color lantern now. Now we even have alpha lanterns, which I don't know what that means. But why is it we haven't gotten fusion lanterns? I'm waiting for
Fu-
fusion lanterns.
Fusion lanterns.
Yeah,
What do you mean
fusion,
by fusion lanterns?
fuchsia, the color fuchsia.
Oh, fuchsia. Okay.
Fuchsia.
Well, we have violet. Um,
Okay.
so we have the Star Sapphire, which is violet, which is love, and
Yeah.
then we also have the pink
You got
lantern.
blue is hope.
Right. Yeah. So we
Yeah.
have let's see, Roy G. Biv. So you have
White.
red, orange, yellow, blue, orange, indigo, violet.
Hmm.
Yeah, indigo and violet. So
Hmm.
Um, so we do kind of have. I mean, we don't have fuchsia because
Yeah.
he basically took the colors that make up the rainbow.
The rainbow.
Um,
Yeah.
so
But I want
that's
to
what he
see a
did.
fuchsia one day,
Right,
and maybe brown. Give me
right.
brown.
And then he added black, which is the absence of all of those
Yeah.
powers, and he added the white, who was Kyle Rayner for a while, who
Mhm.
can basically take any power, any of the colors. So
A lot of good stuff, man, with that. All
yeah.
right, let's go in and let's kick it off with the very first book that we have to add in, and that's an All American Comics 16. Came out in 1940 for DC Comics. A high sale of a 4.0 is at $80,750. That was in May 26th of 2020. Last sale was that 80,000, and that seems to be the fair market value for it. However, what's really interesting is that the raw copies, there was a no grade for $74, which is amazing. I don't think that's an outlier to me, of course. I think this
Yeah.
book is well more than that.
Oh yeah.
But it does exist. Someone bought this for $74, which is a huge steal at whatever grade it's in. It is the first appearance and the origin of Alan Scott, the Golden Age Green Lantern. There's 71 copies in the census. This is the very first Green Lantern. So talk to me a little bit about Alan Scott.
So Alan Scott was he was in Gotham City. He worked for radio, I believe, in Gotham City. But one of the things about Alan Scott is he was on a train. There was a train accident. He found this lantern that had he found a rock that was imbued with power and ended up becoming the Starheart later on in years. It was put into a lantern, and that's how he became the Green Lantern. His big thing in the 40s and the 50s when he was there is his ring could not affect wood. So that was his big thing. Now, one of the things about All American Comics itself is of all the comics in the golden age of Detective 27, Action Comics #1, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to do. This is one of the rarest comics. It hardly ever
Mm,
comes up for sale. So I'm not surprised
yeah.
that it was, 5 years ago was the last time there was a sale on it, because it hardly ever comes up. Um,
So that
he
one
had,
person that got it for $74, they were extremely lucky.
yeah, I'm thinking that's got to be maybe like a page or something of it, and
It must have been
with a
something.
no
It's
grade
but
or
that's the
something.
number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He had his own oath, although he did recite the in blackest day and in brightest day and blackest night. He recited that once, and then he
Mhm.
dropped it. And then Julius Schwartz, who edited Hal Jordan's adventures, grabbed onto it and took it for Hal instead.
Mm. All right, so there is that connection at least.
Yeah. Yep.
Besides the name, of course, but there is that connection. And
Right.
speaking of Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, let's go to that next one, which is Showcase 22. Came out in 1959. High sale of this book is $149,375, and that was in November of 2017. The last sale was in April for $999 at a point 0.5. The Raws we're going for. There's a Raws are going $600 seems to be the average for a fair or to poor. However, the graded copies are $2,393. There's 1,486 copies in the CGC census. This is the first appearance and the origin of Hal Jordan, who is the Silver Age Green Lantern. More importantly, this ushers in this as well as the other showcase with the Flash ushers in the sci-fi elements. Also, it ushers in a little bit of the core concepts, even though we don't talk about the cores until much later.
Right.
So this is the OG. This is the one that everybody cares about. And it is impressive to see the difference in price, where this one's almost $150,000, where All American Comics is actually less than this one because Hal Jordan's that much more important to the mythos of Green Lantern.
Yeah. You also, I mean, a 9 too.
Mm-hmm.
It is incredibly difficult to get any DC comics
Yeah,
from the 50s higher than almost than like a 6. They just
yeah.
don't exist for the most right almost anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's the first one. We're going to be talking a lot about Hal. So let's go
Yeah.
to our next one here. And we're going to stick to Green Lantern #1. This came out in 1960. High sale of this book is $24,000 at a 9.2, and that was September of 2022. The last sale of this book was $445 at a 2.5 in April. The fair market value for the Raws are 219 for fair, while the 5.0s are going for $1,254. There's currently 1,554 copies in the CGC census. This is the first issue of Green Lantern. He was popular enough to give him his own issue. This also is the first time we get to see Oa, the headquarters of the Green Lantern, and it's the first time we see the Guardians of the Universe.
Yeah, so Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, he had 3 issues as part of Showcase. The first one we just saw, then the two issues after that. So he had 3 trade issues, which is pretty standard for what they would do in Showcase or Brave and the Bold. They would give them 2 or 3 issues, see how they sold, because at the time, obviously, um, they didn't have this instantaneous. I can tell you how many books I sold today type of a thing. It
Yeah.
would take months for the numbers to get back to DC and say, hey, you know what, this seems to be doing pretty well.
Mhm.
Julius Schwartz was looking. He was the one that was spearheading and championing, taking the Golden Age heroes and updating them into the Silver Age. That's how we got the Flash in Showcase #4. That's how we got Green Lantern and Hal Jordan in Showcase #22. But he took a lot of the same elements. Like you said, we took the Oath. Although he wasn't, his ring wasn't affected by wood, his ring was affected by yellow instead. So he had his own his own thing that he had too. So and to your point, you mentioned it before, big sci-fi. The 50s was in the late 50s, early 60s, huge sci-fi.
Yeah.
So he brought it into the science fiction realm.
Yeah, the space race, as they call it back then. And I remember watching Big Bang Theory, and they said, so you could beat Green Lantern with a yellow pencil because it's made of wood and it's yellow.
Right.
But one of the things I really like about Hal Jordan's Green Lantern is the creativity that came from it, where that ring could pretty much do whatever you want it to do. And it's bind by the bearer. So if the bearer is not creative, then the ring's not going to do what it needs to do. So you have to be a creative person. And I like how Hal Jordan wasn't like your typical superhero. It was all about his willpower, of course, why he was selected. But he was almost like one of the first early anti-hero types, where he wasn't exactly a good guy per se, even though he was good. He was always kind of like the bad boy, without having to be.
He was a cocky flyboy.
Yeah, exactly. So he wasn't like your typical "let's go get him," type of guy like Superman. He wasn't a Boy Scout,
right?
And Batman was always brooding, so that was a different story. But he was like a good blend, a great character, worked really well. The costume itself, I always thought it was one of the best costumes, especially, you got green and they made it work. So I really do enjoy that with Green Lantern. Let's take a moment, just see a little bit in the chat here, because I know DVH said, Black is Night Prelude, or there ain't a man in your family. And is it, why no rainbow lanterns? Like, I'm a little concerned about rainbow lanterns right now. I don't know how they'll make it work. You know what I'm saying?
They had the white lantern, which was all of the colors. So that was where you got all the colors.
Yeah. And then you have NG, which no grade must have been a page, surely. Yeah, usually it is.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go in our next book, and that is Green Lantern #7, 1961. Ooh. The high sale of this book was $7,170 at a 9.4, and that was in August of 2013. The last sale was $320 at a no grade in April. The Raws are going for $291, and that's in good condition. 4.5s are going for $473. The CGC sentence, 1,065 comics are in the census, and this is the first appearance and the origin of Sinestro. Sinestro, would you say it's Green Lantern's greatest villain?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so talk to me a little bit about Sinestro and why he's such a cool character.
So Sinestro ended up, as we find out, through years and years of their history, whatever, we find out that Sinestro used to be a Green Lantern. And basically what happened was he actually trained Hal Jordan. But then he got a little bit tired of taking orders from the Guardians. And by teaming up with the Weaponers of Qward, he ended up with a yellow ring, because yellow is the only thing that can work against a Green Lantern ring. So that is why he is his best villain. Now, in modern times, Hal has been able to overcome. We end up finding out that the yellow is actually fear, the embodiment of fear, and that's it was in his ring. Hal ends up defeating that. So the yellow from Sinestro's ring it's not an automatic thing anymore.
So. Yeah. And well, I always thought it was interesting because, and they fixed it with Jeff Johns' run, but I always thought it was weird that his ring was yellow, but he was in a blue costume.
Right.
That never made sense to me.
Blue and fuchsia.
And he had fuchsia, and then he had that's this weird spike thing going on.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was just me, and I always thought he looked like what's his name? Oh my god, his name's escaping me. Vincent Price.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
he always looked like Vincent Price because he
yeah,
had that little mustache.
yep.
Right.
Big
But he
forehead.
is, yeah, a big beard. He had like a six head.
Mhm,
Um, but Sinestro is one of those. He's just a really good villain,
mhm,
and he was again. He's just like Green Lantern. He wasn't like a traditional villain. Of course, much later, in the cartoons, they depicted him as a standard villain,
mhm.
but in the comic books, he was good. He was a good guy that after a while was like, this ain't working, and then he went
Right.
to more of a militant style with his approach, and
Mhm,
that's how he ended up becoming a villain, which I think was really good in the same way. Was is like he is not your traditional bad guy.
right.
He eventually becomes that, but the reality of it is he makes a valid argument for
Mhm.
what's going on, and that's what makes Sinestro a really good villain. Anyway, let's take a look at our next book, and that is Green Lantern 16. This book came out in 1962. High sale of this book is $6,300 for the 9.4, and that was September of 2023. Last sale of this book was $220 at a very good in April, and the raws are going for just $230 for very good, which is $10 above what was the last sale, and 5.5 goes for $358. CGC census count 747 copies, and this is the first appearance in Origin of Star Sapphire, who eventually will be known as is Carol Ferris. So,
Mhm.
talk to me a little bit about Carol Ferris, and then talk to me more about Star Sapphire.
Okay. So Star Sapphire is Carol Ferris. Now, the Hal Jordan in his daytime job happens to work for Ferris Aircraft, which is owned by Carol Ferris. So Star Sapphire is actually Hal Jordan's boss. But in the early days, which these are obviously, she was when she would encounter this sapphire that is in her kind of like tiara, it would take over and it would give her powers. Um,
Mhm.
and then it wasn't until she was, removed from it that she would come out of it and she wouldn't remember anything that she had done. Now, later years, when we get to the color spectrum and the different spectrums, Star Sapphire ends up being part of the indigo
Mhm.
spectrum, which is love. So that is, how she's now, and she actually now is a hero in today's
Mhm.
world. If you go to the comics and you look up Justice League Unlimited, Carol Ferris, Starfire is part of the Justice League right now. So she's trying to turn over a better leaf. Who knows how long that will last in today's world? Until they need a good bad guy
they need
again.
they need a female, villain
Right.
for Hal. Right. But it was always cool seeing again another character within Green Lantern's world,
Mhm.
Hal's world, that got in the way of his Green Lantern job, right? Where Lois Lane for Superman was always separate from it. Like she knew of Clark, but in this particular instance, she was just another character. Here, the supporting character becomes the villain, and like you said, she gets amnesia as a result of it as well, which I think is always cool with that storyline,
Right.
because I think what they were doing with Green Lantern is they were being creative, because again, it might have not been the top selling comic book, but it was selling enough comic books
Mhm.
so for them to still be creative with it, not really take liberties where they couldn't do it with Superman and Batman. They took liberties with characters like Green Lantern, like Flash, where they were able to do it. And of course, with the space age time period, he blends so well because he
Right.
is the cosmic character of
Mhm.
the group. Right. Let's go to our next book. And now we're going to 1965, Green Lantern 40. This book's high sale is at $3,360 and 9.6, and that was November of 2024. Last sale, believe it or not, was $56 for a 2.0. That was this month. That was last month in April. And very goods are going for $82, 8.0s, $396. There's currently 1,219 copies in the census. This is the first appearance of Krona, but more importantly, this is the first meeting of Hal Jordan and Alan Scott, which establishes Earth 1 and Earth 2. We see that again with Flash a little before that, but
Right.
this is the origin of the Guardians as well. So tell me a little bit about what you know about this story.
So, yeah, to your point, this is the first time that Hal Jordan and Alan Scott, Flash 123 is when the two Flashes met up. Then here,
Mhm,
and then um, I believe right around the same time, if not maybe a little bit after this, is when the Justice League and the Justice Society get together. And we see the first appearance of the Justice
mhm,
Society. This is the Earth One, Earth Two. Um, one of the big things here is if you're interested because of the why it's the first appearance of Chrono, why that's important is because this ties into the Crisis on Infinite Earths.
mhm,
This is Marv Wolfman used this story right here to
mhm,
tie back to the origin of the universe. We
mhm,
see Krona looking to the very beginning of the universe. That's where we get the hand and everything. And if
mhm.
you know the iconic image of the hand in Crisis on Infinite Earths ties back to a moment in this comic. So really, you can kind of say that the Crisis on Infinite Earths started here.
Mhm. Yeah, and they were already building the foundations. It's in 1965. I'm sure they didn't write the story and saying, "Hey, we're gonna reshape the DC universe in 1985." What 20 years later. Instead, what Marv Wolfman was doing was looking at moments within the DC universe to say, what could I take? What elements could I take? Which is great storytelling and keeping that continuity alive in some way. Um, with this one, it was the fact that these two characters are from two separate universes that are meeting, which they did for DC Universe. Is we're establishing the multiverse in our world, and the multiverse. DC does it better than Marvel. Let's be honest. They know when they do multiverse, they're like, yeah, it's infinite. We don't care. You know what I mean? We could easily say, yeah, that guy's from Earth 572. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And they could pull that off. But the more importantly is being able to build a continuity off of it. And that's the part where it gets more interesting. They could still keep that continuity alive in some way. And
Mhm.
that's what they did here. This is one of the earlier comics that did that. So really good stuff there. Let's go to our next book here, and that is Green Lantern 59. I had to bring it up. 1968. High sale. You get this. For a 9.8 was in January of this year.
Mm.
$30,000.
Yeah.
That's enough to make you go, wow. Right? The
Mhm.
last sale of this book was $153 at a no grade. Raws are going for $199 at a very good 6.0, $280. There's currently 1,903 copies in the census. This is the first appearance of Guy Gardner, who at this time will be established as Hal Jordan's backup.
Right.
Let's-
But we learned that he was actually chosen first, but he ends
Mm,
up being the backup. And this is this what you would see here. This Guy Gardner is in many ways is unrecognizable to the Guy Gardner that you would see
mm,
in coming up in the Superman movie or in Justice League International or whatever, because it was really in the Justice League United, Justice League Unlimited, no, Justice League International, sorry, that he became this, wisecracking,
mhm.
I'm the best, get out of my way
Yeah.
type of a character that has stuck with him up until
Even
today.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was not that type, and he was kind of in many ways it was a one issue throwaway character um,
Mhm.
that they did end up getting back to a little bit later on in the 70s and 80s, but it was he appeared here and then didn't appear for a long time after this.
Yeah. But even with this cover makes you see that cockiness that he has
Hmm.
in the cover. Is like, get out of my way, it's me.
Right.
Well, so he's always been that type of person in some way or another. They just rebuilt on the Kevin McGuire storyline. I don't even remember who. Keith
Right.
Giffen, and Kevin McGuire when they rewrote him for Justice League, which is great storyline.
Mhm.
Um, good stuff there.
More,
Let's say
more,
what's up
more, more,
to
known,
yeah. Go
more
ahead.
known for more known for being knocked out by Batman in one punch.
Which is a great scene. I love going into that scene. Let's say what's up to some people here who just jumped in, and that is Lady F. Lady Fantastic, what up? Welcome to the channel. And Doc, Izzy's the only man in his family because he's surrounded by girls. He ain't wrong in saying that.
Mhm.
Starfire has always been smexy. I
Yeah.
don't even know what that means. Oh,
Mhm.
mama. Yeah, her costumes have been getting skimpier and skimpier. I'm just saying. Like, why even bother?
Right.
I'm just saying. So, hey, villain or not, Hal was getting himself some of that low. You can always count on Joe to
Mhm.
come up with something. All right, let's move on to our next book here, and that is Green Lantern 76. This book came out in 1970. High sale of this book is $20,400 at a 9.6, and that was November of 2022. Last sale of this book was $305 at a 5.5, and the raws are going for $247. Very good. The graded copies are 7.5s at $500. There's 2,987 copies in the census. This starts the socially relevant hard traveling heroes run with Green Arrow. It is the first appearance of Alpha Ala Aspa, which most people don't know who that is, but many people believe this is the first Bronze Age DC Comics where we decided to, Green Lantern, like I said before, it wasn't the top seller, so they wanted to put some pizzazz in it by adding Green Arrow to the mix. That way we can say, hey, let's just put our green characters together. But this series by itself is tremendous, and it starts off with this issue with 76.
Yeah. This is, I mean, if you watch Guess That Key, I mentioned every single episode that this is the beginning of the Bronze Age. It's widely recognized as that not only for DC, but the Bronze Age as a whole. Epa Aliapsa is a guardian of the universe. He travels with, basically what happens is you end up with Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams. This is their first issue together. Denny O'Neil was known for, and Neil Adams too was known for trying to do socially relevant stories, and so they took Green Arrow, who was kind of, for the most part, had not really been used in a lot of ways. They kind of spruced him up in Brave and the Bold a couple ways. They
Mhm.
before they moved him over to this title, teamed up with Green Lantern, and there's a very famous scene where they're in like a black neighborhood, and there's a black man saying, you're always fighting for the purples and
Mhm.
the yellows and everything. What was the last time you did anything for the colored people? And so that's it's that those three panels have been um reprinted multiple times.
Yeah.
And Green Arrow ends up being kind of the social conscience of the two. And so they decide to go along with the Guardian to go across the US and just see what's going on out there, because Green Arrow convinced Hal that he's been out in space too much, and he doesn't really relate to anybody on
Mhm.
Earth anymore, even though Earth is the place that he's supposed to be protecting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know, with Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil, they did a lot of that, not just in Green Lantern comics. They did it with Batman. They tried with Wonder Woman. They had their hearts were in the right place. It just didn't
Yeah.
work.
Well, the problem
Um,
with Wonder Woman, and Danielle will say it, the problem with Wonder Woman is that they took this female icon and took all of her power away.
yeah, exactly. So of course, like, you see him like, yeah, we took the power away from the woman.
Yeah,
Yeah, it just goes to show you they didn't know how to write for
right.
a woman. That's what it shows. But I knew their hearts were in the right place.
Right.
That's the idea. Um, but this one, I think, this specific series is probably the one has the most political,
Mhm.
stories relevance than everything else they did. Um, and it continued on because we go to our next book in this list. I didn't go over with the popular the drug issue. It's not on this list, even though it should be mentioned.
Mhm.
I don't remember what number it is. It is 85 or something like that.
Yeah,
The
it's a two issue. There's a famous
it's a two.
cover with
Yeah,
Green Lantern basically
Speedy.
saying to Green Arrow, yeah, saying to Green
Yeah,
Arrow, you tell me all these problems wrong. This is your award, and you see
yeah,
Speedy basically shooting up heroin.
yeah. So that's the drug story, which I didn't include it here because I feel like that was more about Speedy and Green Arrow, but as a whole. But this one is definitely a Green Arrow part. Green Lantern 87, 1971, 9.8 is the high sale for $10,800, and that was January of this year. The last sale was 143 at a no grade. The raws are going for $225, so it's very good. 8.0 goes for $456. There's currently 2,580 copies in the census, and this is the first appearance of John Stewart, who is one of the early first black major superheroes in the DC universe. John Stewart, for many people, is their Green Arrow. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
is their Green Lantern.
And it has to do with the Justice League Unlimited series, the cartoon.
Mhm.
You know, he was the Green Lantern that was there, and so a lot of kids grew up with him, and
Yeah.
rightly so, have adopted him as their Green Lantern.
Hmm. So, talk to me a little bit about John Stewart.
So John Stewart, if you hear Neil Adams talk about it, John Stewart was basically his idea.
Hmm.
He thought that we needed to show some diversity in the Green Lantern Corps, and there's no better way to do that than to bring up and bring in what had not been seen, and to your point, in many ways before in any comics. I don't
Hmm.
recall when Black Panther came in, but it was probably maybe a little bit
Around,
before this, maybe.
yeah, a little before this Black Panther. So DC already started it off. I mean,
Yeah,
Marvel already kind of started off, but DC was already doing their thing as well.
yeah,
Um, and then we get, like Luke Cage was more like
yep,
75 and
yep.
things like that. Black
Then we got
Lightning, I
Black
think, was
Lightning was a bit
75.
like, yeah, right.
Yeah, but John Stewart was really one of the first one. He may, in fact, be the 1st.
Hmm. Yeah, in
Hmm.
DC. So yeah, so it was a big deal. But then again, in a lot of ways, this was a one issue, and then he was done. You didn't see him for a long time again. Until Cosmic Odyssey, or maybe another um, 30, 40, 50 issues probably.
Yeah. Wonder why? Because it was very clear that they were building on different Green Lantern characters. We see Guy Gardner, we see John Stewart. We're going to see pretty soon some other characters. We mentioned the core. So
Right,
the core is brought up. It's been mentioned, but no one, to this point, we really haven't seen the core. We
right.
just know that they exist.
And I think one of the reasons too why with both Guy Gardner and John Stewart I didn't see them is because at this time it was very much part of the core philosophy that there was only one Green Lantern to a planet or to a sector.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so, later on, we'll find out why there are so many Green Lanterns in Sector 2814. That's
Hmm.
many years down the road.
Yeah.
But it was really kind of a tenet that there was one Green Lantern to a sector operating at any one time.
Hmm. Awesome. Good stuff. All right. What's up, L. Ron Hubbard? You're late, but you're here. That's all good, man. Good to see you, bro. John Stewart's first. I'm an angry black man with a green link. Stop it, dude. Stop it. Let's go on to our next book here, and that is All Star Squadron number 25. This was not in the original list, but I felt the need to add it in there. It came out in 1983 for DC Comics. High sale of this book is $425 and a 9.8. That was in June of 2022. The last sale of this book was $5. Would you believe that? At a very fine. Ross, it goes about $15. Very fine. $76 and 9.8. There's currently 410 copies in the census. This is the first appearance of Jade
Mhm.
and Obsidian, all right,
Right.
who are the twins of Golden Age Green Lantern Alan Scott and Rose Quinton, aka the Thorn. So this is some Green Lantern
Mhm.
goodness here. So talk to me about Jade and Obsidian.
Yeah, so Jade has the power almost kind of like within her. So she's she works that way. But they were big in the All-Star Squadron. They were big in Infinity Incorporated as well.
Yeah,
So they, which is where Todd McFarlane first kind of got his big
made a
his
name
big break
himself.
for. Yeah, exactly. Jade would come back. She would appear a little bit later on with Kyle Rayner and things like that. She would appear in some of his stories as well. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, she was. It was kind of cool. I mean, Green Lantern and Rose Kenton, aka Thorn, um, Green Lantern, Alan Scott,
Alan Scott.
Green Lantern has his whole history has taken another turn, but
Yeah,
he
of
still
course.
is the father of Jade and Obsidian. So,
Mhm.
and Obsidian is very important to the JSA going on right now. The JS story going on right now.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really cool seeing that they're building upon these characters by building these characters here. So it's really cool there. All right, let's take a look at our next book, and that is Green Lantern Corps 201. Not so before I even move forward and talk to you about this, there is no other books before Green Lantern Corps 201. It starts in 201. So they renamed Green Lantern. They decided to make Green Lantern Corps. This book came out in 1986 for DC Comics. The high sale of this book is $528 and 9.8, and that was in March of 2022. The last sale of this book was $38 at a very fine. That was just recently. Raws are going for $37 at a very fine. 9.8s are going for $162. There's currently 1,017 copies. This is the first appearance of the Green Lantern Corps, but more importantly, this is the first appearance of Kilowog, which is the Corps' primary drill instructor. Kilowog's one of my favorite characters. I love him. Everybody's a poser.
Right, exactly. And this was Steve Englehart and Joe Staton. Steve Englehart really kind of threw the doors open, and he was the one who really pushed for the Green Lantern Corps. And he's the one who, okay, you know what? You've got 3,000 different sectors now. Let's see who's out there. Let's see who we can create. And so he was really the kind of the mastermind behind this.
So do you, at this time, was Green Lantern not performing so well, or they just wanted to blow up the Corps?
Yeah, I think Green Lantern as a character, Green Lantern has gone, as a solo character, has gone up and down. I mean, he had his own title, then they brought in Green Arrow, then they lost Green Arrow, then they brought in the Corps, then they lost the Corps, and it's like it's one of those titles that will always be around in some shape or form or fashion. It seems like
Yeah.
there are a couple of titles that DC must publish. It seems like and Green Lantern seems like it's always one of them. It may disappear for a little while, but not. But then again, not too long after this, and I say not too long, relatively. It goes back to just being Green Lantern again.
Yeah, they brought back Green Lantern eventually.
Yeah.
It's so weird to me. I like that this happened because we get to see the Corps, because it took them to 86.
Right.
From the 60s to 1986 to finally say, let's see these people. You know what I mean? So we get the Corps, we get to see them. We get to see the squirrel, all the sorts of different types of Green Lantern characters that are there that people love, even now are now fan favorites. So it's really cool to see that, and good to see the story of the Corps.
Yeah, and other writers were also doing, I mean, Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMantius, they created Nort right over in Justice League. Who is important if you're reading Green Lantern right now. Nort is back. So,
and you gotta love his swimsuit issues. I don't know why he gets them, but
yeah, exactly.
All right, let's move on to our next book, and that is Green Lantern Gantels. Is it Gantels? Tailed number 1. This book came out in 1986. And the high sale of this book is $145, 9.8. That was in July of 2024. The last sale of this book was $50 at a 9.0, even though that person probably spent more than he should have, because the fair market value for a 9.8 is $50, and the raws are just $5. This is a dollar bin book. There's 18 copies in the census, but this book is, based on what I saw, this book is extremely important, and it's written and it's done by John Byrne.
Right. And Larry Niven, who was, anyway, I'm not sure if he's still alive or not, but was a pretty prolific science fiction author at the time.
That's right.
So, and John Byrne, and Ganthet becomes extremely important to the overall Green Lantern series, because he's the one who first teams up with Kyle Rayner and gets him the ring and everything. So, Ganthet becomes very important to the overall Green Lantern mythos. So
do you know anything about this book here, or is it one of those rare ones?
It's one of those foggy things. I'd have to go back and read it again. But
because it does show the origin of the Guardians. So it's that important of a book. When I saw it, it originally wasn't part of the list that we went over, but when I saw it, I was like, this has to be here, And for a dollar bin book that's done by John Byrne, it's worth picking up.
it's to my knowledge, it's the only Green Lantern book that John Byrne has ever done.
Yeah. So go check that one out. Really good book. I gotta look for it up. If not, I'll probably read a digital copy of it if it exists. Let's take a look at our next book, and that is Green Lantern 48. This book came out in 1994. And the high sale of this book is $164 and 9.8. That was in February of 2022. Last sale of this book was $14 at a no grade. The raws are going for $24 for very fines. Graded copies are going for $97 and 9.8. There's currently 2,139 copies in the census. This is the first appearance of Kyle Rayner,
Not
However,
in
it's
Katsu.
it's more like a cameo than
Right.
anything. It is Hal Jordan falls to Parallax. It is also the destruction of the core and the Guardians, and this is the issue of that's the death of Kilowatt. Now,
Right.
before I even talk to you about this book, they already did something with Superman. So the death of Superman already
Mhm.
transpired.
Yep. Yep.
Also, they broke Batman's back,
Hmm.
and I'm trying to remember, there was a third item, but they were at this time DC Comics were they just said
They were
screw
sadistic.
it, we're gonna screw them all over. You know what I mean? And
They were trying to, to rejuvenate the character name by bringing in legacy characters in a lot of ways and see if
yeah,
they stuck.
this story, I remember picking this book up. Ron Morris is a great writer, and I remember how important this story was going to be to Green Lantern. Of course, we learned about Kyle Rayner and things like that, but this story kicks it off. Talk to me a little bit about the importance of this story, how it kicks off, because we're going to talk a little bit about the storyline Emerald Twilight,
Right.
but
So it's
this
funny
is
that
the
you
start of
mentioned the
it.
death of Superman because this actually happened. This actually ties in with the reign of the
Hmm.
Superman, um,
Yeah.
where there's Coast City is destroyed, and
Hmm.
Coast City was the city that Hal Jordan lived in. And so when it was destroyed, it basically just drove him mad. And so he decided that if he could get the power of all of the rings, this was
Hmm.
Parallax. It would be found later on to be it was a yellow entity that was in the ring.
Yeah.
But he kind of went mad and decided if he could collect all the rings, and there's a very famous cover. I don't know if I think you have it in one coming up, but where he has everyone's rings and he takes everything. There it is.
There it
Um,
is.
Yep, famous cover. And he becomes Parallax, and he decides that he's going to rebuild Coast City using the power of Parallax. So he's going to bring
Mhm.
everybody back from the dead.
Yeah. And I remember reading 49 because 48 was like his breakdown, right?
Yep.
He's breaking out, but 49 is when it got real. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Where he literally single-handedly took down the core just like one by one. They all went after him, and he was like, I'm taking you down, takes him down, takes the ring, takes the next guy down, takes the ring. And this image that we see here, this iconic cover, which is surprisingly very inexpensive. I didn't
Yep.
go with the numbers on this one because it's not counting towards the top 20, but it is both of these books are so inexpensive. Like we're talking about less than $25 each
Yep.
at high grades. So this story really took a toll, and it was like, yo, something's going on with Hal, even to the point that they're explaining why he has the white on his hair instead of just
Hmm.
aging, with,
Hmm.
like you said, the whole Parallax storyline. Um, I remember reading it. I have my copies. I love reading the story. I like going back to the story, but it was definitely a big moment in Green Lantern history. It was a big moment in comic books. It was a sign that I think what DC was really trying to pull off is like, you know, we need to get rid of these Silver Age characters, like you said, the legacy characters, and we need to build new characters. Thus, Wally West is becoming the Flash.
Right.
So let's do something similar with Green Lantern, which introduces us to the new Green Lantern. And this one was very special because it's the all new Green Lantern with Green Lantern 51 that came out in 1994. High sale of this book's $149 and 9.8. That was in April of 2022. Last sale of this book was $85 for a 9.8. And that is the fair market value for the graded copies. This is a $9 book at the fair, very fine. There's $683. I always do this. 683 copies in the census. This is the first cover appearance
Hmm.
of the new Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner, who ends up becoming the sole Green Lantern, or as they call it, the Torchbearer. Um,
Hmm.
this was, I guess you could say, the modern age Green Lantern. That was kind of their approach to it. We always knew that Hal was going to come back in some fashion.
Hmm.
Um, and it took them a while before they finally get there. But did you like Kyle Rayner? Because I personally liked him a lot.
Because he was an artist. That's why you liked him.
Uh,
Yeah,
maybe.
I love Kyle Rayner. I mean, I like all of them, but I loved Kyle Rayner. It's unfortunate in a lot of ways because many people remember this part of the Green Lantern series um, as being the woman in a refrigerator portion
Yep, Phrygian.
Yeah, exactly. Of
Plot
a
point.
exactly. But to your point, we had Kyle Rayner, we had Wally West, we had Connor Hawk in Green
Mhm.
Arrow, we
Yeah,
had Azrael was ended up being
Batman.
Batman for a while. We had four Supermen.
Mhm.
Was one of them going to be the Superman in the end? So they were really trying to move these legacy characters through and see what, if any of them, ended up sticking. And Kyle Rayner lasted a while, a good 100 issues, so maybe a little bit less than that, but he lasted a good time. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I liked him because one of the reasons I did like him was because he was an artist, and so it kind of that just like John Stewart was an architect, that informed what he made with his ring.
Mhm.
The same thing
Yeah.
with Kyle Rayner as an artist, that informed what he created. His constructs.
Mhm. Yeah, and with Kyle Rayner, I think what was really cool is he had no idea what he was doing.
Right.
And even with the part with like charging the ring, he didn't know he had to charge the ring. It took him some time before he found this stuff out, and he will learn more how to. So this is a Green Lantern with no help, none. Where Hal did get the help, he didn't, and he was not chosen as much as the rest of them were. The ring didn't just come to him; it just kind of like fell to him, really, and stuff like that with the story of Kyle Rayner. And I personally thought he was great. I loved it. I even liked the costume a lot. I think the
Mhm.
costume was really creative. It still felt like Green Lantern, even though I don't understand the mask as much. I never
Yeah,
got the mask,
it was kind of like
but
metal type of a thing. It almost
yeah,
seemed
like he
like.
had a metal thing on top. I
Yeah.
don't know. Kind of weird, but really good book. Let's go to our next book, and that is we could talk a little bit more about Hal Jordan, but in this part because we didn't leave off Hal Jordan. At
Right.
this point, Hal Jordan has become a villain
Hmm.
in the form of Parallax, and these two stories, Zero Hour and The Final Night, are big stories in Hal Jordan's story moving forward. Talk to me a little bit about both.
Yeah. So Zero Hour. This is where Hal is going to rewrite. The idea of Zero Hour came because of Crisis on Infinite Earths, and they were
Yes.
trying to fix some of the continuity errors that were
Mhm.
created by Crisis on Infinite Earths and what had come after it. So every once in a while, they would do these type of things where they would
Crossover
play
events
with
to
time and
rebuild.
yeah, where they would play with time and things like that to try to fix things. You know, how could if the JSA and the JLA were were now on the same planet, how was the JSA still, how were they still alive to meet the Justice League of America? And, so they were trying to fix continuity. The whole thing with the Legion was all messed up and everything. So, um, but this is Hal Jordan basically going to try to create a brand new timeline. And we had Wave Rider, who was created
Mhm.
as well as part of the Zero Hour. And so this was done to try to create and fix some of the continuity errors that were done.
Mhm.
Now, in Final Night, Hal Jordan finally gets his redemption because
Mhm.
here we have the Sun Eater who has basically is kind of
Mhm.
just like as he sounds, he's moving from universe to universe, galaxy to galaxy, whatever, solar system, eating suns, and basically when you eat a sun, it takes approximately 7 days or something in the DC world for that world to end because there's no more sun.
Yeah.
So they try some different things. It ends up Parallax ends up taking in the energy of the Sun Eater and then restarting our sun and ends himself. But he ends
Mhm.
up saving the universe and reigniting our sun to save everything. So that was
Yeah.
kind of
So
the final thing was there was the redemption of Hal
it was
Jordan.
a redemption story, and then we couldn't. He couldn't go back to being Green Lantern. So what they did
Right.
it was his death theoretically. So they
Until
go to the
they
Day of
judgment.
Judgment storyline, which Day of Judgment #5. That's the important issue of the bunch, and that came out in 1999. High sale of that book is $44, 9.8. I'm shocked by that number. That was
Mhm.
September of 2021, which I'm even more shocked at that number. The last sale was $3. That is also the fair market value. 9.8, $85. So it's actually worth more now. There's
Mhm.
only 10 copies in the census, but with that redemption story, it becomes Hal Jordan then becomes the Sentry, who is now he bonds with the Sentry entity
The
seeking
Spectre.
atonement. Yeah, the Spectre. I said the Sentry. I'm
Yeah.
still on Thunderbolts mode, man. First appearance of Hal Jordan as the Spectre.
Right.
Hal Jordan soul bonds with the Spectre's entity seeking atonement.
Mhm.
So this was very controversial. Like people
Yeah.
were like, we still want Hal. And what people really want was Hal as Green Lantern. They want him
Mhm.
back as Green Lantern. And it had nothing to do with Kyle. It had everything to do with because they want Hal to be a good guy. So what DC's answer at this time was, okay, you're gonna get him, but he's still not going to be Green Lantern. Kyle's our Green Lantern. We'll make him into the Spectre. Looking back at it now, I like what they did, but I also at the same time was like, I remember that as, nah, this ain't good. You know what I mean? And he even had a short-lived series as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was okay with it because I was a big Hal Jordan fan, but um, to me, the Spectre will always be James Corrigan. That's who the
Yes.
Spectre is. You know, I know he was Crispin Allen. He may still be Crispin Allen, but
Yeah.
Spectre was Crispin Allen, who was another police officer that was killed in the line of duty. So he became the Spectre after Hal Jordan.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was good with it, and it also it kind of helped bring Green Arrow back to life because he had been
Mhm.
dead.
Yeah.
The whole thing with the igniting the sun and becoming the Spectre allowed Hal Jordan to kind of bring Ollie Queen back from the dead.
Mhm.
So that played out in his Kevin Smith
Yeah.
series.
Yeah. And again, it was short-lived
Hmm.
because we had to do something with Hal. Apparently, people didn't want Hal to just go away. So what we ended up doing is we ended up giving you why we love Hal. And this story, which is it's technically an Elseworld story, which DC New Frontier #1 came out at the same time, roughly around the same time. Well, actually, it came out afterwards. I'm dating it back to something else.
Yep.
This book came out in 2004 for DC Comics. High sale of this book is $180 and 9.8. That was in December of 2024. Last sale of this book is $8. That is also the fair market value of about $7 really. 9.8s go for $163. There's only 46 copies in the census, which actually shocked me when I saw that number.
Yeah.
It is a standalone Elseworld story. It's the definitive Hal Jordan portray set between the Golden Age and the Silver Age. I love New Frontier. I think it is Darwin Cook's masterpiece.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
It was his love letter to the Silver Age, really.
exactly. So we do get this is really a Hal Jordan story. It's a Hal Jordan and a Flash story. It really tells their story. But
Hmm.
what's your thoughts on New Frontier?
I absolutely love that. To your point, Darwin Cook, the way he wrote it, the way he drew it. I mean, he takes things that should have been, and he shows them in the book. Like you see Wonder Woman, how she towers over everybody in
Yes,
this
including
book.
Superman.
Exactly, because that's the way she was an Amazon. That's the way Amazons were supposed to be, and he drew her that way. Um, but we have we have the Martian Manhunter learning about the Earth through television, through 50s
Mhm.
television. We have everything that was important to the Silver Age. He drew it in here. He drew it together and he brought it up to the 60s, and it was just like I said. It was an errorless love letter to the
Yeah,
Silver Age.
really, and it's such a good way of telling the Hal Jordan story. And where I'm getting at is we had to bring him back,
Mhm.
and that's what Rebirth was all about. Green Lantern Rebirth #1, 2004, same year as New Frontier. High sale of this book's $100 and 9.6, and that was also in December of 2024. Last sale, wow, $4. $6 is the fair market value for a raw, $41 for 9.8. There are 565 copies in the census. This is the start of bringing Hal back and making him Green Lantern. And this is where we retcon the Parallax story as a fear entity and also explains the yellow. Guy Gardner also returns to the core. Jeff Johns, man, when he wanted to bring somebody back, he really thought it through. And this 6-issue series, or is it 8 issues, really gives that story. I really like Rebirth.
Yeah. Jeff Johns, I said this in some of the chats that we're in, but Jeff Johns has a way of taking multiple parts of characters' histories and bringing them together and making them make sense, but then also advancing them in a way that can be career defining for that character. And here, to your point, he took the yellow. Um, he took Parallax. He made Parallax the fear entity, which was yellow. It was the yellow fear impurity that was in his ring that caused his hair to go white or gray. Once he was able to purge that that fear entity, his hair went back to its regular color. He was no longer the Spectre. He was now Green Lantern. There was a companion series to this at the same time called Green
Hmm.
Lantern Corps Rebirth.
Hmm.
And so, it brought back everything. And this was really where Jeff Johns started with, okay, you know what? Why do we just have green? He kind of was laying the groundwork here with, why do we just have green?
Yeah, and it was a slow transition too. It
Right.
wasn't like poof, 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 poof. Even though if after a while you look at it and then eventually became that, but with the stories that we're getting, Jeff John is telling, and this at this time, Jeff John couldn't do anything wrong.
Right.
He also did Flash Rebirth
Hmm.
with Ethan Van Sciver as well, doing the pencils, and it was just him rebuilding the DC universe, really,
Hmm.
where at this same time, Bendis was doing it for Marvel. Jeff Johns was doing it for DC.
Yeah.
Right. Talking about the core, and now we're talking about the spectrum. We start off talking a little bit about Green Lantern, and we spoke about Sinestro. Sinestro Core Special #1, which came out in 2007, has a high sale of $150 and 9.8. That was in January of 2020. Last sale of this book was $8. That's also the fair market value. 9.8s go for $92. 180 copies are in the census. This is Sinestro forming his own core, which is really the yellow core, but they call, a little bit of narcissistic calling it the Sinestro core. But it also introduces the emotional spectrum of concepts. We get a ton of first appearances in the story, and I have to say that cover is so graphic
Yeah.
for what it shows. I'm
Yep.
amazed that it came out.
They're all impaled.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah,
talk to
and
me
it
a little
was
bit this.
this was one of the things Jeff Johns loved to do in his books was he loved to sprinkle at the very end of certain tales. He loved to sprinkle these little epilogues that would have like just one or two pages and would show things that would be coming up later in his run,
Mhm.
and maybe not right away. And that's
Foreshadowing.
and exactly, and that's where we see, I believe, what's in this issue, at the end, where there's a two-page spread where we see all the different colored lanterns there, and that's when we first see the emotional spectrum, and we see all of these characters, finally, with all the different color lanterns. And he says basically, and it'll say, like coming in the fall or coming next year. It was always a kind of a tease to what was
Yeah.
coming up overall in his story. And he had other things he did that he retold the secret origin of Hal Jordan again. He did all these type of things. And
Mhm.
this is where the first work I believe he did with Ivan Reis as well. And now they're
Yeah.
both over in Ghost Machine. But this was in the Green
Mhm.
Lantern Corps, in the Green Lantern story.
Mhm.
The title proper was where he first teamed with Ivan Reis.
Yeah. And in this, I remember reading this issue because I read this issue and I remember it also had multiple printings that it was very popular at its time. Um, I remember reading this issue, and in the issue, you see the ring selecting all
Mhm.
the characters, and one of the rings selected Batman.
Mhm.
And that scene was like, oh yeah, Batman. It's perfect. Batman will be perfect to be a Yellow Lantern, right? Because he
Mhm.
is the embodiment of fear. That's
Right.
the whole purpose. And he disregarded the ring. The ring decided to go somewhere else,
Right.
which is really cool. I also like that they used Superboy Prime as
Mhm.
a Yellow Lantern, so he became one. They
Yep.
took characters from the past that we knew and say you're gonna be a Yellow Lantern, and that's what was cool about this story. Ivan Reis ended up being part of the Sinestro storyline, even though this one was done by Van Sciver, which was a
Mhm.
one shot, really, which was the lead up to the Sinestro core story, which was
Right.
in '07. It was hot.
Mhm.
Like we talk about top trending, that was the top trending book of that time
Yeah.
because people were really invested in this storyline, and it not for a long time was Green Lantern that relevant as he was in 2007. And
Right.
that's eventually led to the Ryan Reynolds movie and things like that.
Mhm.
because he was that popular. So when we look at the one that you mentioned earlier, Green Lantern 29 is the Secret Origin that came out in 2008. This is not an expensive book. $32 at a 9.6 was the last high sale, and that was in July of 2021. This is $3 book, guys. Graded copy, $32 for 9.6. There's only 8 in the census, and this is that origin story. Which what he was doing here is that he did that origin in the traditional sense, but he included the new elements as if it was a new version of Green Lantern. So you talked a little bit about this. Reese is doing the art here, but John is really taking this mythos of Green Lanterns, kind of like modernizing it. If that means anything.
Yeah, and one of the things you can see it here. One of the things that I really like too, and the Ethan Van Sciver did it, was he was the one that first came up with that. Beside over his white and green, that's a part of his costume. He would have an illuminated
Mhm,
lantern as well, and that
mhm,
was really kind of cool the way that he did that. It was
mhm.
just kind of a neat touch that no one had ever done before. So
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a good story, so it's worth
yeah.
checking out. Again, dollar bin book, man. I said it earlier. A lot of these books are very inexpensive. Whenever we do these spotlights, you'd be surprised how inexpensive many of these books really are. Mhm. All right, let's take a look at our next one, and that is The Blackest Night. I believe this is the last actual comic book that we're going to go over. But Blackest Night #1, 2009. High sale of this book's $150 and 9.8. That was May of 2023. Last sale of this book was $4. Fair market value of this book is $5. Graded copies are going for $130, 9.8, 164 copies in the census. And this is the full introduction of the Black Lantern Corps. We talked a little bit about the other motions, but then we get the story of the Black Lanterns led by the Hand, who
The Black
at that
Hand.
time, the Black Hand, he was kind of like a C-list villain. Um, but man, this story was nuts.
It really was. Um, and this was, I think, in many ways, this was Jeff Johns and Ivan Reis's magnum opus, Blackest Lantern, for Green Lantern
Mhm,
anyway. They would go on, like I said, they did Aquaman after this, then they did Justice League together, and now they're both
mhm,
on Hyde Park over in Ghost Machine. But
mhm,
um, it was it brought back. Um, it brought back characters that had been dead for a long time. In fact, it even brought back comic books that had been dead. Like
mhm,
we had a new issue of Starman, we had a new issue of Phantom Stranger, we had all these new issues. Just one issue, but it continued the numbering of the original issues.
mhm.
Um, and then we had some 3 issue miniseries as well. It tied into everything it had. It was so well crafted and so well drawn. And I actually have a page, an original art page from the series by Ivan
Oh,
Reis.
cool.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
one of my
Yeah.
things that I. But yeah, it was just, and then that led into Brightest Day, and
Mhm.
it was just it was cool.
Yeah, it was really cool, especially since the Oath and Black is Night. It was just one of those things. Like Jeff was like, you know what? Let's. When is this Blackest Night supposed to happen? Well, there it is.
It's in the
Now
book
it's
again.
happening.
Yep.
That was the whole point behind it. Something very simple, like as an oath that no one really people took for granted as far as what it meant.
Yeah, it was a
And
throwaway line that Alan Moore had written in one of the
exactly.
Tales of the Green Lantern Corps.
And now here it is having meaning. So it's really cool. Another thing that we'll talk about quickly while we're wrapping this up is the new Green Lantern characters that are coming out now. So we have 3 books here. Believe it or not, the new 52 free comic book day is the first appearance of Simon Baz Green Lantern.
Mhm.
Then we have Justice League 31, which is the first appearance of Jessica Cruz. At
Mhm.
this issue, she didn't become a Green Lantern yet, but she becomes Power Ring,
Right.
so which eventually leads to her being a Green Lantern. And then finally, our last book here is, I believe, Sojourner,
Yeah, Joe
with
Mullen.
yeah, exactly, with Far Sector. Talk to me a little bit about these new lanterns that are leading the way for the Green Lantern Corps.
So Simon Baz was a pet project of Jeff Johns. He grew up in Detroit, which is where Jeff Johns grew up. He was Muslim, which Jeff Johns wanted him to be Muslim. He carried a gun. but he was basically created in the slums of Detroit and everything, and that's kind of where he got his idea for, and that's where he got Simon Baz. Um, Powering calls back to the powering from the Injustice League from one of the alternate Earths, Earth 3, I believe it is.
Mhm.
But because they're the opposite, originally it was all Jessica Cruz had was fear, even though she had the power ring, all she had was fear. And so she really had to overcome fear because that was who she was.
Mhm.
And Far Sector was done as she's actually now Joe Mullen is kind of leading. Well, they have Al Jordan and John Stewart as well, but right now is kind of leading the Absolute Green Lantern story.
Yeah.
But Far Sector was done by NK. Can't think of her name now. But anyway, again, another science fiction author, famous for science fiction. Um, and she basically, it was kind of like a murder mystery in a lot of ways. She had to basically solve a murder mystery, and so it was kind of cool. So she's the newest face of the Green Lanterns. Although we also have had a Teen Lantern as well in some of their young adult novels, who has shown up in in the Green Lantern proper series as well. So every time another one comes along, somebody finds a way to use them.
Yeah, exactly. So really cool stuff. Awesome stuff. I love Jessica Cruz because she's a Green Lantern that's Hispanic. Of course, how could you not be with a name like Jessica Cruz?
Right.
I thought that was really cool that they threw in that as well. Guys, what are your thoughts on this list? Like I said, top 20-ish Green Lantern comics. I hope it did you justice. I hope we get as many books as you guys wanted to see, learn a little bit more about the mythos. I have a great guy in Paul who knows so much about Green Lanterns. I thought it was a perfect opportunity to take advantage of it. Let me know in the comments which Green Lantern is your favorite. Also, tell me which books you would like to have from this list and you're still seeking, or you didn't know something about it. I like to know. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe for this one. And that is the end of that one. So
Thank you so much.
we're doing really good here. You remember, I told you sometimes we go 3 hours, but I think we're gonna make it. But I think we're gonna make it. So you got a well done. Look at that, SP Carp fan. Thank you so much. Comic Verse loves the final night.
It was a good story.
Sinestro has a big
He
forehead.
does. He really does.
I like that GL dog character. That's Nort. The first appearance of GL Madness that he was referring to 48.
Yep.
Oh my god, it's so good, man. I love Green Lantern is such an underrated character. I will have to say he's very underrated.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, we're gonna go really quick on this last one. It's time for New Comic Book Days. Let's take a look at our fresh picks.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna stick to the whole green theme. I'm just sticking to the whole green theme. And this week's new comic book releases for May 7th, 2025. We got ourselves an Absolute Superman coming out this week, and if that cover says a lot, it does. I am so looking forward to some Brainiac. But before we even talk about some Brainiac, let's talk a little bit about last week. Last week's previously fresh picks. You got here the top voted comic book was Ultimate Spider-Man 16 with 43%. World's Finest came in at second place. That's the annual for World's Finest. Came in second place with 6%. Godzilla versus Spider-Man with 4%. Detective Comics came in with 3%, and Fantastic Four. So a little mix between Marvel and DC. Did you get a chance to read any of these? I know you mentioned World's Finest a little bit.
I did. I read. It was actually a very slim week for DC. It was because it was a week 5 of the month. So, but I did read the World's Finest annual, and I read the Detective Comics annual. Which for the most part, were really kind of the only books that, for the most part, came out last week.
Yeah,
for DC.
But how was World's Finest? You mentioned something about World's Finest.
Good. We're if you're not following the World's Finest and Justice League Unlimited, they're doing their crossover right now. Gorilla Grodd is doing some timey-wimey things, bringing the original Legion of Doom into the present. There's some fights that go on. Robin in the past, who is Dick Grayson in the past, gets shot by a ray gun, which is infused with tachyons. He gets sent into the time stream. He ends up in the current time, and so the World's Finest annual ends with Batman looking at Dick Grayson Robin and Dick Grayson Nightwing.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. I did pick that up, but I didn't know that happened. So that's good to know. All right, let's move on because we got to talk about the rundown. This week, we got 87 new releases, 329 variants, gives us a total of 416 comic books. Publishers, you got to cool this down with the variants, and there's one culprit we'll talk about later. Shane knows who it is, and you'll see who it is in a minute. New number ones, there's 21 new number ones. Out of those 21, there's 118 variants in addition, and that gives us 139 new comic books that are all number ones. Potential keys, there's 16 potential keys with only 3 issues that have first appearances that we know of. When it comes to the publisher breakdown, Marvel has 16 titles with, my goodness, 63 variants. DC is not too far behind with 12 titles and 38 variants. Now, this is where it gets really crazy. Image Comics has 14 titles, 22 variants. Boom Studios has 6 titles with 20 variants. IDW has 3 titles and 3 variants that are included with it. And Dynamite's back at it with 6 titles. And they could have just made one more. Just throw in one more.
They do a trade dress, and they do a virgin, and they do a black and white, then they do a foil. So you get at least 4 or 5 of each.
Of the same thing, right? 99 variants, but a comic book ain't one.
And it's a number one, so it's got to be Captain Planet is doing probably most of those.
And you know what? It probably is 100 if you count the Earth Day Captain Planet. Yeah. So let's count that in there. And then Dark Horse has 10 titles with only 6 variants. As far as the remaining indie publishers, there are 20 new titles with 58 variants. This is how this breakdown goes. Yes, Dynamite is always on top of the list when it comes to these things.
It's more exciting to see how many pages of variants they have in the back of every comic book than it is to actually.
Well, here's the crazy thing about Dynamite is that they're not even full 32-page comic books.
Right.
They're even thinner. There's like 16 pages or something like that, whatever the number it is. It is ridiculously small page count with these books, and they just keep cranking them out. It's amazing that they keep doing this. I don't get it. Anyway, let's start off with Absolute Superman number 1. This book is I want to say the key of the week. It is the introduction of Brainiac, and it's his first full appearance. The horrors of Absolute Brainiac are revealed. So you've been reading Absolute Superman. What's your thoughts so far? And really, he's always been lurking in the shadows, but now we're finally going to get ourselves some Brainiac.
He has, but we also find out that he's been working for Ra's al Ghul as part of the last.
That's right.
So we have that as well. So I really like Absolute Superman. If you read the last issue, Mark and I talked on one of our shows that it embodies exactly what the Absolute Universe is all about. The last issue, because it was him coming to Earth, it was him finding the Kents, it was him being taken away from the Kents, it was all these things. There were these glimmers of hope that were dashed every single time and put out by something else. And that's exactly what the Absolute Universe is. It's about there is no hope. Every time you think it's going to be extinguished.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm on issue 4 of Absolute Superman, so I'm a little behind. I'm behind on a lot of books, really. I've been catching up on Ultimate Spider-Man, believe it or not. Just reading them digitally. It's just so much to get across. But what I've read of Absolute Superman, I really dig. I honestly thought that he was going to be responsible for the death of Krypton. Like somehow I thought they were going to do something where he was partially responsible for what happened. Didn't turn out like that. But still, the story is still impactful. Before we even move forward, is it true Butch Geist passed away? Rest in peace. Yeah. Right. And what's up to Rich, Comic Cat Collectible? What's going on, my man? Wow, just Butch Guys talking about Superman. He was a great Superman artist.
And
Um,
he also created well, he didn't create, but him and Mike Barron, I think uh, Mike Barron did the Wally West Flash. Re,
hmm,
re, uh,
yeah,
relaunched Flash with the #1.
awesome. Yeah, underrated artist, definitely
Mhm.
great artist. He'll be missed, of course. All right, Ultimate Wolverine #5. This is the Ultimate Sabretooth. Mysteries of the Ultimate Wolverine past are revealed when a familiar face joined the fray. So cover A is not done by Alan Davis, so I got caught. This always happens. This is norm, where there's always one mishap. So this cover was done by Alessandro Cappuccino, who did cover A. There's also the Neil Francis Yu, who I'm very interested in what Sabretooth is doing there
Mhm.
with his hands. He's like, hey, I got a magic trick. And the Steven Sokovia 1 in 25. Um, Ultimate Wolverine's a great book. I'm really enjoying Ultimate Wolverine. I like that he's mysterious. I'm curious to see what's their take on Sabretooth is going to be in this storyline, especially since Wolverine is very much a Black Ops character, who Sabretooth is going to be. So I'm really looking forward to it. Um, I didn't say Bradshaw. You know, I'm pass on Nick Bradshaw. My feelings towards him. I like him as a person, but well, let's not go down that rabbit hole. Have you been reading Ultimate Wolverine or anything like that?
I got the first issue, but I mostly picked it up for a cover because I love Lieber Mayo, who did
Mm-hmm.
a variant on the first issue, and so I got that.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I really haven't been reading it. So
Yeah, it is cool because he's really the Winter Soldier.
right.
So they're building him up as the Winter Soldier. Obviously, he is more of a hired gun rather than what we know as Wolverine. But he's starting to learn a little bit more about his past. So really good storytelling. All right, our next book in this list is Batgirl #7. This one's important because it's the origin of Lady Shiva, who is going to share her secret origin to Batgirl. I take it you have been reading Batgirl, have you?
No, actually, I have not been reading Batgirl.
Really?
Hmm.
So this one's interesting enough to me because when I saw that, it's like, oh wow, Lady Shiva is who's the mother of Batgirl, Cassandra Cain, and she's gonna start sharing her story. So this is definitely a key to check out. I know Shane's been reading Batgirl.
Hmm.
He's like, that's the book that he keeps. He says he's gonna end it, but then he comes back to it all the time. So that's why.
That says a lot for the comic, though.
Yes, does says a lot for the comic. And it is the book that he would have been able to tell me exactly what's going on in Batgirl. I don't read Batgirl. All I know is that we got to get an origin, so that's important.
Mhm.
Let's go to our next one. This is another origin, but it's one that I think most people want to know, and that's All New Venom #6. This is the origin of the All New Venom. What happened after the events of Venom War? Why did the symbiote choose this host? And why can't they separate? And Jackpot confronts Venom, and she may not like what she finds out. Neither does any of the public.
Yeah. Isn't
What's your thought on Mary Jane as Venom?
okay? Isn't Mary Jane the new Venom? That's the only thing that I know. I'm not a
Yeah,
big Venom fan either. So, um,
yeah. This is the issue that's supposed to explain what happens. And what
yeah,
happens was Marvel just wanted to do something to make everybody go crazy.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I'll pick it up to see what kind of ridiculous story they tell us. Not that I'm going to be happy about it.
I will let you pick it up, and you can tell me what it's like.
And then finally, JSA 7. This is the Society is mourning because Wildcat has passed away. Is that correct?
He didn't pass. He didn't just pass away. He was killed.
Talk to me
Yeah,
about what's going on in JSA.
yeah. So the Injustice gang is back, and they've been posing as one of them was posing as Obsidian, and so they captured the original JSA, and they have been holding them inside Doctor Fate's tower. Um, it's a combination of the original JSA and like the newer. So we have Yolanda, who is the new Wildcat, um, We have the new Doctor Midnight. But we also have the original Flash, the original Green Lantern. We have Obsidian, who's there as well. So Jeff Lemire, or Jeff Lemire, however you say it, is writing quite a story. And big shock at the end of the last issue, killed off Ted Grant, Wildcat. So we'll see how that goes.
I felt like they should have made more of a big deal with it because Wildcat's such an important character, especially to JSA mythos.
Yeah.
How does that affect characters like Black Canary and things like that?
Right.
Because he's that important to it. I've always liked Wildcat. He's one of my favorite characters. His portrayal in Justice League Unlimited was always fun. The way they had him. So rest in peace, Wildcat. Our indie key of the week is Free Planet #1. There is an Ashcan preview that is limited to 407 copies, so be cautious of that one. This is the first completely free planet in human history that has won its independence. Now, a group of revolutionary heroes must defend the planet's unique energy source from a pair of hostile intergalactic powers while determining what complete freedoms actually entails. This is the story done by Aubrey Sitterson, and Jeff Donnery. I saw this and I was like, interesting. And there is a 1 in 50 Osorio, but there's also, I believe, a J. Scott Campbell cover that's out there. No, I'm thinking of something else. I'm sorry. But this one's very interesting. It's kind of like one of those cosmic storytelling, Guardians of the Galaxy type of thing. So that's going to be the indie key of the week. Go check it out. If you like it, let me know. All right, let's go with the eye-catching variants, starting with Absolute Green Lantern issue #2, Torrent Clark. That is gorgeous. Something about Poison Ivy Comics. They always have great covers. You got a Carlin Cohen that is a retailer exclusive. But the 1 in 50 Joshua Sway, I think, is trying to channel his inner Peach Momoko.
I was going to say, it's very Peach Momoko-like.
You know what I mean? But what are your thoughts on any of these covers?
Well, I love the Torrent Clark run. I've loved everything that Torrent Clark has done. He did some Flash covers a while back. Whenever I see that little TC in the square, it's like I know it's a great cover.
Yeah, exactly. So let's take a look at some other ones here, and that is Birds of Prey 21. That's the Nimit Malavia. JSA 7, Sweeney Boone has a great cover featuring Alan Scott and the rest of the JSA. And speaking of Black Canary Best of the Best #6, the Beling Ortega cover. I like that one too. It's like she's putting the tape on. Like, who is she gonna fight?
Well, she's been fighting Lady Shiva, I think.
Yeah, Lady Shiva. In fact. So really good covers there. You like any of these three?
Yeah, I ordered the Sweeney Boo one. So
the Sweeney Boo one looks really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Then we got our Marvel books. Star Wars #1, the Facsimile Edition 2025. There's a Mike Mayhew cover. A lot of people don't give Mike Mayhew the kind of credit he deserves. If you think of Alex Ross, most of the time, Mike Mayhew should be in that same place, because those covers that he does are brilliant. And this Dark Vader with Obi-Wan on his eye, reflecting off his eye, is gorgeous. You also have Storm number 8 with 1 in 50 Akua. Storm cover, which I always love Storm in her Thor costume. And then you have Laura Kinney, Wolverine #6, the Simone Demi cover. I think that's also great, man. What are your thoughts?
I think the Star Wars one is a retailer exclusive, right?
It's a facsimile. I do believe it is a comic. I want to say Comic Mint.
Comic Mint, yeah. And maybe Sad Lemon Comics, because they do a lot of them together. Sad Lemon if you're in the UK, and then Comic Mint if you're here. But yeah, and you're right. He's definitely gives off Ross vibes.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, man. I think it is a Comic Mint. Go check that out. You can probably order it today. Also, John Tyler Christopher is doing another one with West Coast Avengers #7. This features Wonder Man. There's also another exclusive, Amazing Spider-Man #3 with Joseph Michael Lindsay. doing the Hobgoblin. I like that one. Russell Donman is doing X-Men 16. That is an open order one which features multiple versions of Cyclops, which he's done this before with other characters, but I think that John Tyler Christopher Wonder Man's gonna be one to get.
Yeah, he loves the negative space. That's his playground.
That's his play, and it's John Tyler Christopher,
Right.
and it's Wonder Man who is going to get a resurgence pretty soon because we are going to get a Wonder Man TV show coming up.
Right.
Yeah. Then this is the J. Scott Campbell Blood and Thunder #1 1/50 J. Scott Campbell cover. There's also a G.I. Joe 316 by Andy Kubert, and the Scorch 40 Federico Sabatini. I think that was a great cover there, but as you can see, the J. Scott Campbell cover is kind of a bit of a shocker for a comic book that I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Has that Black Widow vibes to it. And then finally, we talked about this earlier, Captain Planet #1. This is the Mark Spears cover. Just to let you guys know, there's tons of them.
Yeah.
And you could get Captain Planet in any different color you want. But the other two books I think are going to be hot ones, which is the Hello Darkness #10, another Jenny Frison cover with a spider, which is crazy. But the Pop Kill #3, I'm going to call this book the pick of the week because I do believe people are going to get crazy picking that book up. Because it's Adam Hughes.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So last time we had an Adam Hughes cover, it was the #1 book in the trending list. So who knows? Pop Kill does it again, but Mark Spears, he's not too far behind this. I would say that these three artists are probably the top artists of today. And Adam Hughes has been doing it for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
And there you have it, guys. Those are your fresh picks for today. Tell me what you think about it. Like, comment, share if you possible. And, of course, if you want to subscribe to the channel. We thank you so much for your time. We appreciate your time there. And with that said, we've hit the end of our show, Paul. You did it, man.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being so knowledgeable on Green Lantern. Really appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? Dude, man. When I said you were good at it, man, I knew it. Oh, man. So before we go, guys, I just want to remind you guys of a few things. I will be doing the monthly show. I'm looking into Friday, but I'm not 100% sure. If not, there will be pre-recorded versions as well. Also, if you're interested, hit me up on Instagram. If you're interested in sketches, I will be doing sketches, and $10 of those sketches will be going to C3 Comics Curing Cancer. If you're going to, these are the Heroes Con sales. So if you're going to Heroes Con, I will bring the sketches there. Our sponsor, Global Comics, you could get 33% off your yearly subscription. All you have to do is sign up. The QR code that you see there is correct. So if you're interested in reading some good comic books, they have some great Green Lantern comic books there as well. Go check out Global Comics. Also, when you get a chance, go check out my video on Cover Price. Cover Price's site. I'm doing April 2020 this year in comics. It was really fun doing that one. There was a lot of stuff when it comes to one specific book that was hot during that time that as of today, no one's really talking about. But there you have it, guys. Those are your books there. And I like the Hello Darkness cover. And of course, Paul knows so much about Green Lantern. Izzy, him, and Mark are the founders of the Damn Fan Club. Oh my goodness. I think Mark's more of a Hulk fan club than a Green Lantern. Is that correct?
He's a big Green Lantern fan.
He's a big Green fan.
Are his two favorite characters, I would say, probably.
Yeah, he's into the green. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So if there's green, he loves them. Anyway, Paul, where can people find you?
You can find me right here in this box. I am here again every Monday morning for DC Comic Deep Dive. Thank you to Christina Payne. She put my link in your chat earlier, so thank you for that. And then every other Wednesday night for Guess That Key, and then every Sunday night I am on Mark's channel for At Week's End. So come on out, subscribe, we give away lots of stuff too on Guess That Key too. So.
It's Guess That Key. You have some really good giveaways, man. I've seen them, and the thing is that you guys do it at such a time that I'm already in bed, so I have to see the replay. But it is always fun doing it, and whenever you want me to go back on the show, I'll definitely.
Absolutely.
I got some more slabs that I'm ready for. I picked up some really cool slabs. I'll tell you a little bit afterwards about it. But thank you so much, Paul. Really appreciate it, and thank you all for watching the show. It really helps us out. Watch the replays. They're gonna be coming out all this week. But as always, I got to tell you guys, thank you for watching. So with that said, Excelsior.
I think this is it. I think you're about to go home. Okay. All right. Thank you.
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 Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I never said thank you.
And you'll never have to.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I guess I'll see you.
See you guys. Bye.